The morning sun streamed through the window of my apartment in New York, illuminating the small, disorganized space. The light reflected off the paints scattered across the table, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that reminded me of my life as an artist. But in that moment, my gaze was fixed on an old photograph I had found in a box of memories. It was an image of Jake and me, happy, smiling at each other on a summer day, the blue sky in the background. Time itself seemed to have frozen in that instant, and the warmth of his embrace still felt like it resonated in my body. Jake, I murmured to myself, feeling a pang of nostalgia. What could have been? What had happened between us? The weight of betrayal was still fresh in my mind, like a shadow that wouldn't let me be. The memory of the way he looked at me, with those eyes full of promises, and then how everything fell apart. It was hard not to relive the good and bad moments, as if the past was constantly pulling me back. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me out of my introspection. It was a message from Clara, a longtime friend. "Hey, Sarah. You should come to the art exhibition in your hometown. The gallery is showcasing some amazing works. Shall we meet there?" I smiled as I read her words, an invitation to step out of the bubble of melancholy I was trapped in. Maybe it's a good idea, I thought, hesitating for a moment. The idea of returning to a city that had left me with so many scars made me nervous. But at the same time, there was a glimmer of hope. What could I find there? Who could I reconnect with? With a deep sigh, I decided it was time to face my past, even if it meant confronting Jake again. That afternoon was dedicated to buying the ticket to my hometown. My heart raced in my chest as I typed in the information on the ticketing website. Each click felt like a step towards the unknown. What was I hoping to find? Would Jake still be there? I found myself reflecting on what had really gone wrong between us. I couldn't understand how two people who loved each other so much could lose their way. The echo of unspoken words and broken promises filled my mind as I looked out the window, watching the frantic movement of the city. When I finally bought the ticket, a mix of anxiety and excitement washed over me. It was time to pick myself up, leave the past behind, and move forward. But the question lingered, was I really ready for this? I looked again at the photograph of Jake and, in a moment of impulse, decided to put it away in a box, along with other memories I needed to bury. "No more living in the past," I murmured. On the day of the trip, the city felt different. The sun shone brightly, and the atmosphere was light, as if the very air was encouraging me to embark on a new phase. With every mile I put between me and New York, I felt a blend of nostalgia and relief. Upon arriving in my hometown, I was greeted by the familiar scent of flowers and warm asphalt, a smell that brought back memories of childhood. I headed to the gallery, a place that had always been a meeting point for artists and dreamers. As I entered, I was enveloped by a wave of emotions. The walls were adorned with vibrant works, each telling a different story. It was as if each brushstroke was calling to me, reminding me why I loved art. My heart raced with every new painting I saw, and the feeling of being back in my hometown was comforting. But amidst the crowd, something made my heart stop for a second. I saw him. Jake was there, standing in front of a painting as if time had not passed. The same intense, familiar gaze, but now it carried a shadow of regret. I felt like a prisoner in my own emotional trap. The desire to run to him and ask why everything had happened mixed with the need to pull away. "No, not now," I thought, taking a deep breath. Instead of letting myself be swept away, I decided to ignore him. What I was doing there wasn't for him, but for me. To reconnect with the artist who had been lost amid the chaos of a love that didn't work. It was time to focus on the works, on myself, and not on ghosts from the past. As I walked through the gallery, my gaze lingered on each painting, each sculpture. I let myself be carried away by the beauty of the art, forgetting, even if just for a few moments, Jake's presence. However, with every laugh from a group of friends, every animated conversation, my heart tightened. What did I really want? What was I hoping to find in that city that once made me so happy and so sad? Sarah? A familiar voice pulled me from my daydream. It was Clara, with a radiant smile and open arms to welcome me. You came. So good to see you. She hugged me, and I felt a wave of warmth and comfort. You won't believe what's happened. The gallery is full of old acquaintances, and you can't miss the chance to reconnect with them. As Clara guided me through the gallery, other faces began to form in the crowd. Some people recognized me and came over to say hello, but deep down, I felt Jake's presence looming like a dark cloud. He was there, and the possibility of a reunion was closer than I would have liked. Look, there's Matt, Clara exclaimed, pointing to a man I knew well. Matt had always made my heart race, but he was also responsible for so many insecurities. He was handsome, charming, and always seemed to be surrounded by people. I remembered how I felt around him, as if I were in a constant competition. Hey, Matt, I said, trying to control the anxiety in my voice. He turned around and, upon seeing me, his face lit up with a genuine smile. Sarah, long time no see. You look amazing. He approached, and the tension in the air was palpable. What was I supposed to feel? What was I supposed to say? Thanks. It's good to be back, I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. And you, how have you been? Oh, you know how it is, life goes on, he said, with a sparkle in his eyes. Are you going to be around for a while? Yeah, I hope so. I'm here for the exhibition and to relive some moments, I said, feeling my heart race. Matt always had that effect on me, and I needed to remind myself that I wasn't that insecure girl from the past anymore. That's great. I hope we can chat more later, he said before stepping away. My heart was divided. What did I really want? What should I do? The answer was still far away, and I knew the past wouldn't let go easily. As night fell and the gallery filled with laughter and conversations, Jake's presence continued to follow me. I needed to decide what to do now. What was I really looking for when I returned to my hometown? The atmosphere of the gallery was filled with murmurs and laughter, a mix of enthusiasm and vibrant art. I was absorbed in a painting, its vibrant composition reflecting light in a nearly magical way. However, a familiar presence interrupted my moment of contemplation. When I turned around, my heart skipped a beat. Matt, my former classmate, was standing there with that smile that always made me feel a whirlwind of emotions. The same smile that once made me feel small and insecure. Sarah? He said, his voice low but full of curiosity. I took a deep breath, trying to control the wave of memories that washed over me. What could I say? What could I feel? His presence was like an echo of a past I was trying to leave behind. Hey, Matt, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. It's been a while, hasn't it? He stepped a little closer, and the scent of his cologne brought me back to distant days when we were young and carefree. What I didn't realize was that the insecurity was still there, hidden beneath the surface. You look great, he commented, and I could see the sincerity in his eyes. I heard you're doing art in New York. Yeah, I'm trying, I murmured, avoiding his gaze for a moment. The truth was I was still struggling to feel like a real artist, and hearing that from him felt like an extra weight. I always knew you had talent, he said, and there was a glimmer of admiration in his eyes that made me hesitate. Haven't you shown your work around here? No, not really, I replied, a little defensively. I'm not very good at showcasing my work. The conversation flowed with some difficulty, as if we were trying to navigate a minefield of memories. Matt had always been the kind of guy who drew attention, which made me feel like I was in the background. He was handsome, smart, and always seemed to have everything under control. And me? I was just the girl who always felt invisible next to him. You really should show your work, Matt insisted, his gaze fixed on me. It's not just about talent, it's about allowing yourself to be seen. Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. It was as if he knew exactly what I needed to hear, but the insecurity still paralyzed me. Maybe one day, I replied, trying to change the subject. And you? What have you been up to? Oh, I'm around, trying to get settled, he said, a little more relaxed now. Working on some stuff. Art, actually. Really? I asked, curiosity starting to creep into my mind. What kind of art? Photography. I like capturing moments. It's a way to see the world, you know? He smiled enigmatically, as if inviting me into his universe. I wanted to ask more, but the tension in the air made me hesitate. What I really wanted to know was if he still remembered how he made me feel back then, the insecurity, the fear of not being enough. Instead, I just shook my head, trying to stay grounded. The exhibition is beautiful, isn't it? He commented, gesturing towards the paintings. It's always nice to see what others create. Yes, it is, I agreed, but my mind was far away. I could only think of Jake, who was nearby, just a few meters away. The thought of seeing him again made me restless, and Matt's presence only intensified that confusion. Well, it was good to see you, Sarah, Matt said, breaking the silence that had formed between us. I hope we can talk more. Sure, I replied, but the truth was I had no idea what I wanted. As he walked away, a part of me wanted him to stay, while another wished he would disappear. The tension from the conversation with Matt still lingered in my body when, suddenly, I saw Jake. He was there, standing as if time hadn't passed. My heart raced, and I felt completely exposed. The crowd around me faded away, and all I could hear was the sound of my quickening breath. Jake looked as handsome as I remembered, and that feeling of nostalgia hit me like a wave. But what was I really feeling? Love? Hate? Confusion? I didn't know. Sarah, he said, approaching me, and his voice was like a familiar song, but filled with dissonant notes. Jake. The only word I could manage sounded strange on my lips. He tried to smile, but there was a shadow of insecurity in his eyes, as if he were aware of what he had done and the pain he had caused. Are you okay? He asked, and the concern in his voice irritated me. How could he care about me after what happened? I'm fine, I replied sharply. And you? Are you okay? He hesitated, and I realized he was trying to find the right words. I wanted to see you. To talk about what, Jake? I challenged, my eyes narrowing. About the betrayal? About how you left me alone when I needed you the most. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words seemed stuck in his throat. The silence between us was deafening, and I could feel the weight of unspoken grievances. Sarah, I was wrong. His voice was heavy with emotion. Wrong? I laughed bitterly, the irony of the situation hitting me. You can't just use that word as if it solves everything. You broke me, Jake. I know, he said, his dark eyes reflecting genuine remorse. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. That I wish I had acted differently. But you didn't, and that's what matters. I shouted, feeling frustration explode within me. You can't ask me to forget what happened. The conversation was getting intense, and I knew the crowd around us was paying attention. I wanted to scream, cry, but at the same time, I just wanted to disappear. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I would like another chance, he said, an appeal in his eyes. Another chance? For what? So you can hurt me again? I asked, anger mixing with pain. No, Jake. I can't. He looked defeated, and the expression on his face made me feel a pang of compassion. But I couldn't allow myself to feel that. I needed to be strong. Sarah, please, he insisted, but I didn't want to hear any more. I need to go, I murmured, turning away and leaving Jake behind. The weight of unspoken words and repressed emotions followed me, but I knew I needed to leave that situation before it hurt me again. Outside the gallery, the air was fresh, but the breeze couldn't ease the storm brewing inside me. As I walked, I was intercepted by Matt again. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, the concern in his eyes genuine. "I don't know," I replied, sincerity escaping before I could think to hide it. "I just had a difficult conversation." "With Jake?" he guessed, and I nodded. The world felt too small, and Matt was a reminder of what I was trying to avoid. He wants a second chance," I confessed, feeling the knot in my throat tighten. "And what do you want?" Matt's question was abrupt, but necessary. "I don't know," I said, the truth hitting me like a punch. "I don't know what I want." "Shall we grab a coffee?" he suggested, breaking the silence that followed. I hesitated, but the idea of being alone made me agree. "Okay," I replied, and together we headed toward the cafe, a journey that promised to be both uncomfortable and revealing. The soft light of the evening filtered through the cafe window, where I sat, lost in my thoughts. The cup of coffee still steamed in front of me, but its aroma couldn't dissipate the confusion overwhelming me. The walls were adorned with old photos of the city, and each one seemed to tell a story. My hometown, which once felt like home, now presented itself as a labyrinth of painful memories. Jake and Matt danced in my mind, like shadows refusing to fade away. "Are you okay?" Matt's voice interrupted my daydream. He had taken a seat at my table, his gaze curious yet concerned. I didn't know if I should share the whirlwind of emotions that assaulted me. "Yeah, just thinking," I replied, trying to force a smile. But the truth was that the confusion consumed me. I looked out the window again, watching the passers-by, oblivious to my internal battles. "About Jake?" Matt asked, and I was surprised by his ability to read my thoughts. "I don't want you to feel pressured to talk about it. It's complicated," I said, letting out a sigh. "I thought coming here would help me leave the past behind, but everything feels more intense than I expected. Maybe you need time to process it. The city has a way of reviving memories, doesn't it? Sometimes it's hard to know what to do with them." He smiled, but there was a seriousness in his eyes that made me feel comfortable enough to open up a bit more. "I don't know if I'm ready to deal with all of this. The betrayal, what happened between us, and now Jake is here, trying to get close again. Do you still feel something for him?" Matt's question was direct, and I hesitated. The truth was that a part of me still held affection for Jake. But what I felt wasn't love, it was confusion and pain. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I still love him, and other times I just feel anger. He hurt me in a way that I just can't forget. Matt leaned forward, his gaze locked on mine. "Sarah, I know that pain doesn't disappear overnight, but you need to decide what you want. What really matters to you right now?" Through his words, I realized he was right. I needed clarity. I looked at him, and for the first time, I noticed there was something more between us. Matt wasn't just the guy who made me feel insecure. He had become someone willing to listen to me, to understand my struggles. "I just want to be happy," I replied, feeling a wave of vulnerability. "But I don't know how to get there." Start by allowing yourself to feel. Don't hold on to the past. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. And if that means leaving Jake behind, then that's what you should do. The cafe was emptying out, and the conversation took a more personal turn. Matt began sharing his own experiences. "You know, I've been through this too. Not in the same way, but I used to have a perfect life in mind. Then everything fell apart. My parents divorced, and I felt lost for a while." His confession surprised me. "Matt, I had no idea. You never talked about it. I never wanted people to see how vulnerable I was. That's why sometimes I acted arrogantly. But the truth is, we all have our battles." He smiled, a smile that seemed lighter now. I realized it's easier to connect with people when you're honest about your struggles. It was a moment of pure sincerity, and I felt like I was getting to know a new Matt. He was no longer that boy who made me feel inferior. He was a man who had his own insecurities and challenges. "Thank you for sharing that with me," I said. "Knowing you've had your struggles, it means a lot. I just want you to know that you're not alone, and that, regardless of what you decide about Jake, I'll be here." The warmth in his voice and the sincerity in his gaze brought me unexpected comfort. Dinner with our mutual friends was about to start, and I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. The idea of being in the same room as Jake left me unsettled, but at the same time, there was a part of me that wanted to face it. "Shall we go to dinner?" I asked, trying to inject a bit of lightness into the situation. "Sure. Let's see what the night has in store for us." He stood up, extended his hand to me, and in that simple gesture, I realized something special was starting to bloom between us. Dinner was an engaging experience, with laughter and conversations flowing among friends. However, Jake's presence loomed like a cloud, and I couldn't help but glance in his direction. He looked more handsome than I remembered, and the way he conversed with others seemed natural, as if nothing had happened between us. But when our eyes met, a chill ran through my body. "Hey, Sarah," Jake said, approaching me with a smile that seemed genuine, but I knew it concealed much more. "How are you?" "I'm good," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "And you?" The question came out drier than I intended, but there was no way to hide the tension. "I've missed you," he said, and the sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. "I know I messed up, but I would like a second chance." The room seemed to shrink around us, and I could hear my heart pounding. While everyone else chatted, the atmosphere between us was charged with an electricity I didn't know how to handle. "Jake, this isn't easy for me." I searched for words that could express what I felt, but all I managed was a hesitant mumble. "I know. Just give me a chance to explain. I feel like you might not have fully understood the situation at the time." The anguish I felt hearing his words was almost palpable. I wanted to scream, to tell him how much his betrayal hurt me, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, a friend from our group interrupted us, distracting us. "Hey, everyone, let's toast to old memories." He raised his glass, and everyone joined him in a toast. But the idea of toasting to what I had lost, to what Jake had destroyed, left me uneasy. Matt was beside me, and I could feel his gaze fixed on me. He sensed the tension between Jake and me, but made a point to keep the conversation light, bringing up topics about the town and our shared memories. During dinner, I got lost in thought. Matt and Jake were two sides of a coin. One made me feel vulnerable, but also encouraged me to open my heart. The other was the past that had hurt me, and I didn't know if I could forgive it. After dinner, when everyone started to disperse, Matt and I left together. The fresh night air wrapped around us, but the confusion still lingered in my mind. "Sarah, how are you feeling?" he asked, breaking the silence. "I'm still processing everything. Jake, he really wants a second chance, but I don't know if I'm capable of giving that to him." "You don't have to decide right now. Take it one step at a time. What matters is what you want, not what he wants." "I know, but it's hard to ignore what he did. I feel like I'm at an impasse." "Then let's take a walk. How about we head to the park? The fresh air might help clear your mind." I agreed, and as we walked, a part of me wondered if I was truly ready to face the shadows of my past, or if I should allow myself to explore what was blossoming between Matt and me. The soft spring breeze brushed against my face as I walked through the familiar streets of my hometown. It was strange yet comforting to feel the familiarity of the place. The trees were blooming, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers. After so many years, I was back, not just to visit an art exhibition, but also to re-examine the fragments of my past. In the past few days, Matt and I had met a few times. He seemed different now, more mature, and somehow more accessible. I still carried a weight in my heart, but beside him, a new spark of hope was beginning to emerge. That afternoon, we decided to take a walk in the park, where the sun shone brightly and children played joyfully. "Do you remember when we were kids and used to come here?" Matt asked, his eyes shining with nostalgia. "Yes, it was our favorite spot. I always felt so free running around here," I replied, smiling at the carefree moments we had shared. "I remember how you always had a new idea for us to play." "You were so creative," he said, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. It was as if he were trying to see beyond the surface. "And you were always the most popular boy, attracting everyone's attention," I joked, but I couldn't help but let a shadow of insecurity wash over me. "I used to feel so invisible next to you." Matt paused, and I could feel the tension in the air. "I never wanted you to feel that way, Sarah. In fact, I always admired your art. You had something special." I was taken aback by his words. It was as if he were trying to show me a new perspective on our past. "Thank you, Matt. That means a lot to me," I said, trying to hide the vulnerability in my voice. As we continued walking, a sense of comfort settled between us. Conversations about art, music, and dreams intertwined, creating a connection I hadn't expected. Matt seemed to understand the nuances of what I was feeling, and somehow, his words encouraged me to open up more. That night, while we were in a cozy cafe, Matt looked at me with a serious expression. "Sarah, I know things between us haven't been easy in the past, but I'd like to try again. Would you feel comfortable with that?" I felt my heart race. It was an invitation to something I wasn't sure I was ready to accept. "Matt, I don't know. The last time I trusted someone, I ended up getting hurt," I confessed, looking at my cold coffee. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'm here. I don't want you to feel pressured, but I really like you," he replied, his sincerity touching me. "I like you too, but what about Jake?" The mention of his name made my stomach churn. It was a shadow that still loomed over me. Matt sighed, seeming to ponder his words. "Jake was part of your past, Sarah. You need to decide if you really want to move on or if you're going to stay stuck in that pain." I knew he was right, but doubt still tormented me. What I felt for Jake was a tangled mess of love and betrayal that I hadn't been able to untangle. "Maybe I need more time," I finally replied. "I respect that. Just know that I'm here, no matter what you decide," Matt said, his voice gentle. There was a sincerity in his words that made me feel a little lighter. In the following days, I tried to keep my mind occupied with the art exhibition and meetings with friends. But Matt's presence was always on my mind. He was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that I still had the capacity to open up and feel again. Every encounter was a mix of nervousness and excitement, and I realized that, little by little, I was allowing myself to relax. One night, while we were at an art gallery that Matt had chosen, he turned to me with a serious look. "Sarah, I don't want to pressure you, but I really want you to know that I'm interested in you. Not as a memory of the past, but as someone who wants to build something new." I looked into his eyes, feeling a wave of emotions. "Matt, My words were interrupted by a familiar figure appearing at the gallery door. It was Jake. My heart raced in my chest. He looked hesitant yet determined at the same time. "Sarah," he said, approaching, "can we talk?" I felt the tension in the air rise and looked at Matt, who was clearly uncomfortable. "Sorry, Jake, but I'm busy," I replied, trying to keep firmness in my voice. "Please, it's important," he insisted, and I realized I couldn't avoid this conversation any longer. My past was back, and now I needed to face it. "I'm going to get some air," said Matt before stepping away. I watched him leave, and a part of me felt guilty for leaving him in that state, but Jake's presence was like a storm approaching. "Sarah, I know I hurt you. I'm sorry," Jake began, his voice trembling. "I didn't expect you to come back, but when I heard you were in town, I needed to see you." "You have no idea what I went through because of you, Jake," I said, anger and pain rising up. "You just left me without explanations, without thinking about the consequences of your actions." "I know, and I have no excuses. But I've changed. I realized how stupid I was to let you go. I want a second chance," he pleaded, his eyes filled with regret. "Why should I believe you?" I challenged, crossing my arms. "You broke my trust. How can I be sure this won't happen again?" Jake hesitated, and I could see the struggle on his face. "Because I've truly learned from my mistakes. I've been working to become a better person, and you deserve someone who treats you with respect. You deserve to be happy, Sarah." His words reverberated in my mind. I wanted to believe he was telling the truth, but the pain of betrayal was still very fresh. "I can't just forget what happened, Jake. It's not like a magic trick," I replied, keeping my voice firm. "I don't expect you to forget, but if you give me a chance, I can show you I'm different now," he said, and there was a sincerity in his eyes that made me hesitate. At that moment, I felt torn. Matt's presence, the promise of a new beginning, and the memories of Jake were all pulling me in opposite directions. What did I really want? What was best for me? The silence between us became oppressive, and I knew I had to make a decision, but the truth was I wasn't ready to face the consequences. I wondered if I could really open my heart again, if I was ready to deal with what might come next. "I need time, Jake," I finally said, my voice trembling. "I need time to understand what I want." "I accept that. Just know that I'll be here, waiting," he replied, and I saw a mix of hope and pain in his eyes. As Jake walked away, a wave of confusion washed over me. What did I really want? The security of the past or the uncertainty of the future? I looked toward the gallery exit, where Matt had gone, and realized the choice was in my hands. But what did I truly desire? I sat on a bench in the park, the same place where so many memories of Jake and me intertwined like the branches of the trees around us. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink, but the beauty of that moment couldn't dissipate the tension building in my heart. The anticipation of seeing him again made me nervous. What would I say? How would I feel? The past was about to unfold before me, and I had no idea how I would react. Jake arrived on time, with that expression I knew so well, a mix of anxiety and hope. He looked more mature, but there was something in his gaze that still carried the same insecurity I remembered. When our eyes met, time seemed to stop for a moment. A nervous smile formed on his lips, and I forced myself to return it, even knowing there was a storm of feelings inside me. "Hi, Sarah," he said, his voice trembling. "Thank you for coming." "Hi, Jake." The longing and pain were there, like ghosts hovering between us. "What did you want to tell me?" He took a deep breath, as if preparing to dive into deep waters. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you, and I can't forgive myself for that. But I've changed, Sarah. I've truly changed." "You've changed?" Incredulity seeped into my voice. "How can I believe you? You broke the trust one had in you." "I know, and I don't expect you to trust me that easily. But I realized you were the only one who really mattered to me. I was an idiot." He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. "Please listen to me. I don't want to lose you again." His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I wanted to believe. I wanted everything to be simpler, but the weight of betrayal was still fresh in my memory. "Jake, you can't just expect me to forget everything that happened. I got hurt a lot." "I know I can't, but I'm here to try to make things right." To show that I'm a different man now. I've distanced myself from everything that made me go wrong. He seemed genuine, but doubt still consumed me. What did I really want? The answer wasn't clear. Do you have any idea how I felt after you left me? Anger and sadness surged. I felt broken, as if nothing I did could fix me. And now you want me to just trust you again? I'm not asking you to trust me immediately, he said, his voice softer. I just want you to give me a chance to show that I'm better, that I can be better for you. Silence settled between us, and I looked down, trying to organize my thoughts. The truth was, as much as I wanted to move on, a part of me still clung to what we had. But what about Matt? What did he represent? I couldn't just disregard him, not now that we were starting to build something. Jake, I began hesitantly. I don't know if I can do this. I'm starting to open up to someone else. And I don't want to hurt anyone else. Someone else. His expression changed, hope fading quickly. Are you talking about Matt? Yes, Matt. His name slipped from my mouth like a whisper, but the mention brought forth a new kind of confusion. He's different from you. He makes me feel safe, special. Safe. Jake repeated, incredulity in his tone. How can you feel safe with someone who always made you feel inferior? He doesn't do that anymore, I retorted, defending Matt fiercely. I'm learning to value myself, and he supports me in that. I can't just ignore what he represents in my life. But do you really believe he's the best for you? The frustration in Jake's voice was palpable. He can't give you what I can. I know you better than he does. You don't know the Sarah I am now, I said firmly. Things have changed. I've changed. The conversation seemed to be spiraling downward, and I didn't know how to get out of it. What did I really want? That reunion was making me realize that while I was trying to deal with Jake, Matt was there, a constant presence that made me feel I could be myself. When the conversation finally ended, Jake said goodbye with a tight hug, but I couldn't feel the comfort I had hoped for. Instead, I felt more lost than ever. The confusion that already dominated me was now turning into a whirlwind of emotions, and I needed a moment to breathe. As I walked back home, my heart was heavy. Thoughts of Jake mingled with memories of Matt and the new connection we were forming. What did I really desire? What did I deserve? As soon as I arrived at my apartment, I found Matt sitting on the stairs, waiting for me. Hey, he said, standing up when he saw me. How was it? It was intense, I replied, trying to find the right words. He wants to try again. Matt's expression changed instantly. Insecurity washed over his face, and I realized he was preparing for a conversation that I wasn't sure I was ready to have. Sarah, I need to be honest, he began, his voice low. I've been feeling insecure about us since you met with him. I don't want to be the second choice. You're not an option, Matt, I said, my voice trembling. But I'm struggling with my feelings. The past is complicated, and Jake, well, he hurt me a lot. I understand, but we need to be clear with each other. I can't stay in this limbo, waiting for you to decide what you want. It's hurting me. I don't want to hurt you. The sincerity in my voice seemed to echo between us. I'm trying to figure out what I really want, but it takes time. Time is something I'm not sure I can give, he said, expressing his frustration. I like you, Sarah, and I don't want to be just a phase in your life. The truth was that I felt a genuine connection with Matt. He made me laugh, listened to me, and seemed to understand the struggles I was facing. But there was still a part of me that felt drawn to Jake, and that confused me even more. Matt, please don't think that way, I pleaded. I just need time. What happened with Jake was devastating, and I don't want that to affect what we're building together. He took a deep breath, his eyes searching mine. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between me and him, but I also can't be a plan B. The tension escalated, and I realized I needed to make a decision. What did I really want? What would make my heart feel at peace? Maybe I need some time alone to figure all this out. If that's what you need, that's okay, he said, but the sadness in his voice was evident. I just hope you know what you want when the time comes. And with that, the conversation dwindled. I watched him walk away, and loneliness engulfed me. As I sat in the darkness of my apartment, I realized that the journey to find what I truly desired was just beginning. Love, betrayal, and insecurities surrounded me, and now, more than ever, I needed to face those feelings head-on. The sunlight filtered through the leaves of the trees, creating a dancing pattern on the ground of the park. I was sitting on a bench, my heart racing, trying to process the intense conversation I had with Jake. He spoke about regret and a second chance, but what I really wanted was to leave the past behind. The weight of betrayal still marked me, like a scar that wouldn't heal. I looked at the sky, trying to find clarity. "Sarah?" Matt's voice interrupted my thoughts. He approached with a gentle smile that always made me feel a little lighter. "You look pensive." I'm just trying to understand some things," I replied, forcing a smile. "It feels like everything is happening at once." "Do you want to talk about it?" He sat down next to me, leaning in a little closer. There was sincerity in his eyes, and I felt like I could open up to him, even though there was still a part of me that hesitated. "It's about Jake," I confessed, looking down. He reached out to me again. "He's trying to explain everything, but I don't know if I can listen." Matt sighed, and I noticed the tension in his body. "Have you made a decision about him?" I thought I had, but it's hard, especially when he talks like that. He seems so remorseful. I felt vulnerable exposing my feelings, but I can't ignore what he did. "Of course not." Matt turned to look me directly in the eyes. "You deserve someone who puts you first, Sarah. Someone who doesn't make you go through this." I know, and at the same time, I feel like I'm being selfish. I can't just ignore that I once loved him, even though he hurt me. "You're not being selfish. You're taking care of yourself." He seemed genuinely concerned. "What Jake did to you isn't something you forget easily. And as much as he tries to redeem himself, you need to think about yourself first." I took a deep breath, absorbing his words. It was comforting to hear that from someone who had always been around, even if in a not-so-direct way. Maybe I should really cut ties for good. I don't want to be held hostage by my past anymore. "Then do it." Matt's voice was firm. "I'm here for you if you need support." "Thank you, Matt." I smiled, feeling a growing warmth in my chest. I really appreciate your honesty." In the days that followed, Matt's presence became a safe harbor. He encouraged me to explore my artistic side and step away from the ghosts of the past. On one of our outings, we decided to visit a new art gallery that had opened in town. "Are you ready for this?" Matt asked as we walked together down the sidewalk, the dry leaves crunching beneath our feet. "Yes, I'm excited. I can't wait to see the new works." The anticipation began to replace the anxiety I felt earlier. As soon as we entered, the gallery was filled with vibrant pieces, each telling its own story. While admiring an abstract painting, I realized that I was genuinely having fun. "This is amazing, don't you think?" I pointed to a canvas full of contrasting colors. "Yeah, it's like every brushstroke has its own emotion," Matt replied, his gaze fixed on the painting. "It's almost poetic." Hearing him speak like that warmed my heart. I wanted that moment to last forever. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jake. He was chatting animatedly with a group of people, laughing as if nothing had happened between us. The heat rushed to my face, and a bittersweet feeling washed over me. "Sarah?" Matt's voice brought me back to reality. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just need a minute." I tried to step away, but he held my arm, concerned. "Do you want us to leave?" He seemed genuinely willing to protect me from the situation. No, no. I need to face this. I took a deep breath and walked toward Jake, feeling my heart race in my chest with each step. Hi, Jake. My voice sounded steadier than I expected. He turned, and his eyes met mine, a mix of surprise and expectation. Sarah, great to see you here. He smiled, but there was something forced in his expression. You too. I maintained my posture, determined not to let him affect me. I was admiring the works. It looks like you're having fun. Yeah, I'm here. He hesitated, searching for the words. I really want to talk to you. About what? What could there be to talk about that hasn't already been said? Frustration was beginning to show in my voice. About us. About what happened. Jake seemed sincere, but I didn't want to get swept up in his excuses anymore. I don't want this anymore, Jake. I can't keep living in our past. The words came out before I could think better of it. I was tired of feeling this way, tired of letting him into my mind. Sarah, I made a mistake, and I know that. But I'm trying to be a better person, he said, a look of pain in his eyes. You may have changed, but I've changed too, and the truth is I can't trust you anymore. I kept my tone firm, resolute. I need to move on. Please don't do this. He looked desperate, but I wouldn't give in. I already have, Jake. I turned and walked back to where Matt was, my heart pounding. He looked at me with a mix of relief and concern. How do you feel? He asked as soon as I got closer. Like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I smiled at him, feeling a wave of freedom. I finally did it. I knew you could. Matt smiled back, and the connection between us felt stronger than ever. In the following days, something inside me transformed. I felt lighter, more confident. The art began to flow again, and Matt was always by my side, encouraging me to express my emotions through painting. He helped me see that I deserved to be happy, that my past didn't have to define my future. One day, while we were together in my studio, I looked at him and said, Matt, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I'm just being myself, he replied, his eyes shining. You deserve this and so much more. Then, shall we build something together? I asked, feeling my heart race. A future where I can be myself, without shadows from the past. Yes, let's. He leaned in and gave me a soft kiss, and in that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. Jake was left behind, and I was finally ready to move forward, with Matt by my side, building a new chapter filled with love, trust, and freedom.